All right, we got our next two sessions. We got Gina and Meredith here. And just as a reminder for those that do wish to participate in our social media challenge, you can post on Twitter or X or Instagram using the hashtag ReadySetMimioStem. And then be sure to tag us as well. We did get a few folks posting on Twitter as well, so we will highlight those as our event is going on.
Hi, welcome everybody. Just going to give everybody like a couple more seconds to go ahead and join on in. My name is Meredith Williams. I am a middle school teacher. I teach 8th grade here in Orlando, Florida, sunny Orlando, Florida. And today I'm going to be talking about using 3D printed materials in everyday lessons, whether it is a lesson that was specifically designed for that, or if it's just a really quick, they're not getting something, so they need something manipulative, something hands-on, something a little extra to get the brain cells going and to make those connections. So let's see. So this is me. I do work in Orlando, Florida. I am an 8th grade middle school teacher at Freedom Middle School. So why do I use 3D printing? It increases engagement. It gives the students something to do. Now I work in a digital school, so we each of our students has a laptop, and they're very fixated on that laptop, just like they're very fixated on all types of electronics. But I want them to be fixated. I want them to be able to manipulate and hold other things. So it increases higher level questions. I get a lot more of, well, why? Or how does it work if I do this? And it also helps bridge the gaps and increases understanding, especially with our English language learners, because they're not just hearing the words, but they're actually being able to see and manipulate those ideas, so they can bridge the gap between their language and English. And if you have any comments or questions, please feel free at any point to add those to the chat. So why do I use 3D printed materials? Because they're durable. They are PLA plastic, so I can use them over and over again. I do work in a middle school, so I do teach 7 class periods. So I have 7 classes coming in and out. So not only are they just lasting for the entire day, but I can use them every single year. They're not going to go bad. They're not going to fall apart because they're being handled and dealt with. Yes, they are plastic. Yes, they can break. But having the 3D printer in the classroom, it's very easy to print a replacement object. They're universal. I have many different pieces and parts of 3D kits for entirely different lessons. And I'm actually going to show you an example of what I mean with this with my seed dispersal example. They're great for on-the-spot demonstrations. I have an entire cabinet of just random 3D printed things. And I use planets as circles and things like that. So you can pick and use your parts as you need them. You can manipulate the size, which I absolutely love. You can make something very small, like different parts of the cell, and actually blow it up into big puzzle pieces so that kids can create these life-size cells on their desks or on their tables. They're fully engaging. For differentiation resources, I can have several different stations with several different types of 3D manipulatives that the students either have to interact with in one way, solve a problem, or utilize them to answer questions. So it really is truly universal. So for my classes, I do teach a curriculum set by the district. However, I always try to teach in a way that my students are going to understand, that I try and give them real world connections in order to bridge those gaps with the science and life outside the classroom. I try and teach my kids that science is truly all around us. They interact with it on their phones, they interact with it on their computers, they're interacting with it when they're just walking outside into our courtyard. And that's a hard concept for students to understand, that science is all around us. They walk into science and be like, science is hard. I hate this subject. Well, I try and break that by letting them know that science is everywhere and it's not just strictly in a textbook. So I do try and remind my students that we can still have challenging experiences, but be able to grow from those. You can have a favorite subject. You can have a not favorite subject, but you can't not necessarily discount the science because of that experience, truly, because science is incorporated in everything that we do. Science can be something that they enjoy learning just because they get a lot more hands-on and then they can do. It's not just going to be that other class that I have to go to. So this was my seed dispersal kit. And this is a 3D print that I created that I printed up from 3D stems. And this is actually a kit that I do not use, that it's supposed to be. It's not designed for the way I use it. I use this within my first day or two of class at the beginning of every year. And I don't give the students any information. So I print up several different types of seeds, and there's over a dozen types, and I make them all different colors. And I tell the kids that the colors don't matter. They're just bright neon colors just to get them engaged with it. But I place 2 or 3 different seeds on each table. I don't tell them that they're seeds. I just tell them I'm placing 2 or 3 different objects on each table. The students look at them, they can manipulate them, they can switch them out with other tables. But I do tell them, I'm like, what is it? And there's only one answer for the entire class. There's only one answer. So even though they have different ones on their table, they have to come up with what is it. And there's a lot of, they think it's bacteria, or they think it's something that lives in the ocean. They think it's plankton. They think it's coral. So we get a lot of different things, but nobody ever guesses seeds right off the bat. So I listen to the students' discussions and they get into it and they fight over it. Like, no, it can't be this. And they give me the reasons as to why. And all of a sudden they are completely 100% engaged and all in. And this is only day 2 of class. So the hook, line, and sinker, they've bought in. I give them discussions, and then I get one answer from each group, and the discussion continues, and the conversations do get in depth. Sometimes I have to give them more like, okay, it's not this, it's not this. It is something that's living. So it's a living entity. Okay. It's part of the biosphere. And I give them little pieces, and eventually I lead them down the path of their seeds. And then we have a discussion of, why do they all look different? Why would they have to look different within their environments? And at the end of the lesson, this usually takes about 15 to 20 minutes. And at the end, I'm like, guys, you just scienced. From start to finish, you scienced. You had an investigation. Not all science has to take forever. Not all science has to be analytical and quote unquote sciencey. It's just about having discussions and solving problems. And I have the students' attention. I have them on my side from day 1, just because I've already taught them that science doesn't necessarily have to be textbook and or boring. Are there any questions thus far? I can't see my chat screen. Oh, wait, hang on. There we go. Chats. If we have any questions, make sure that we're throwing those in the chats. I don't see any yet, so I'm going to keep on going. Maybe not. There we go. So I do fully understand that just because I absolutely love science and it is my passion, that is not going to be everybody's that walks into my classroom. And I do not expect all of my students to love science as much as I do, but I do encourage them to try their best and to at least give it a chance. Teaching is continually evolving. Am I able to share pictures of my seed design? Sorry, I just saw so The pictures that were, hang on, I'll go back. The pictures that I incorporated in here are actually some of the different seeds. Hannah, are you still in here? Do we have pictures of the seed dispersal? Maybe not. Tracy, I will try and get you pictures. No problem. So I've incorporated a lot more hands-on manipulatives in the past 5 years using the 3D printer resources. And each year I discover new uses for them. Many times I'm able to retrofit and 3D print materials to meet my instructional needs. That's why I love absolutely having that 3D printer here, because I can manipulate my own manipulatives. I can make things bigger. I can make things smaller. I can change the dimensions of them. And a lot of times I will give my students 3D printed materials. I'll give them a kit. They each, especially for my honors levels classes, where I give them items, and they're really just potluck type items. And then they have to develop their own investigation or experimentation using what I give them. And the things that they come up with, because it is so open-ended, is phenomenal. I mean, the things that these kids come up with on their own, and the experiments, and they use the scientific method from start to finish using these 3D printed materials, is just absolutely insane. I love it. I absolutely love the engagement. So plate tectonics, in the state of Florida, we, our 8th grade students need to take a state assessment, and their state assessment at the end of 8th grade is incorporating 6th, 7th, and 8th grade materials. So they are tested on a lot of different things at the end of their middle school year, at the end of 8th grade. So we do spend a lot of time reviewing 6th and 7th grade standards, especially in our 4th quarter in school. And plate tectonics is one of the big ones, just because a lot of students have a difficult time, understanding, just because the vast size of it. It's really hard to comprehend something that you just can't wrap your head around of how big it is. So I love using the plate tectonics. I create my little continents. And again, these are items that you can make thicker, you can make thinner, you can expand them, you can make these big puzzles. I have them, now this is just like a standard cereal bowl, just a plastic cereal bowl that I will fill with water, and all of the consonants go in there. And I incorporate 3D printed materials into the lab to experiment, especially for concepts difficult to understand due to the vastness. Now, these 3D prints offer simple, hands-on experiences to gather and process information. So in the picture down in the bottom left, I have our geosphere, and it just has the crust, the mantle, and the core. And and you can have the cores broken up into two, where you can actually use clay for to have the inner core and the outer core, the inner core being a solid and the outer core being that moltenly liquid. So I usually just print out the core, the mantle, and the crust, just because I want the students to understand the size difference of it, of how much bigger the mantle is compared to the crust or the core. So that just gives them a visual aid of it. And then in the bowl, so I just put a bowl of water on each of our tables, and they get the consonants, and they put the consonants in the water. And so okay, what do we see before we do anything? What do we see? Well, they're floating. Well, what is the water simulating? Well, that's the magma. Okay, great. So then I'm like, well, what happens to magma? Does it stay put, and it kind of just settles, and they stop moving everything, and the consonants just kind of sit there. They don't move. And then we put an Alka-Seltzer tab in the water, and it creates this convection, this bubbling. And then all of a sudden the consonants start shifting. So they're really able to see. And we run this experiment 3 times. So they have 3 different Alka-Seltzer tabs. So they're able to see that it's not always pushing and pulling or combining, convecting, diverging together in the same way. So they're absolutely able to see the differences. And then they're able to apply that to the Earth's crust. And then I do have a lab workup sheet that they have to answer questions and fill out. So yes, it's fun, but there's an application aspect to it. Hannah, while I have you in here, do we have any pictures of the seed designs?
From the seeds kit. Yeah.
The seeds dispersal. I had a question to share pictures of the seed dispersal kit.
Yeah, when you are done with going through your slide deck, I'll have it up here on my screen and can show folks.
Perfect. Thank you. There you go, Tracy. Up and coming. Any questions about the 3D print for the continental shifting? So we teach students about transverse waves. Again, this is part of review. So when discussing technology in space and solar properties with the electromagnetic spectrum. So for the this lesson that I use, I print up different types of waves and with different wavelengths. So I'll have the long wavelength, I'll have the short wavelength, and I make them huge. I make them big. So they're really able to see the differences between them. So for the lesson, I will go over, okay, like find where you have, thank you, Hannah. Where like find in the bowl where you would have a wave with a long wavelength, and then I have to go scrambling through their bowl and find one and then hold it up. So this just gives me an idea if they understand the vocabulary, truly what a wavelength is. Versus a high frequency. All right, now go find me a high frequency wave. So if there's holding up the same ones, or if they're going to find different ones, and I make them all brightly colored, and I tell them that the colors mean nothing. It's just brightly colored to get them engaged. And all the kids fight over the different colors because, of course, they have the favorites. But it gets me to fully understand if they know the vocabulary. And then once I know that they have a handle on that vocabulary, then they get to draw. They need to exhibit their understanding of the movement of waves through different types of matter. So if we have a wave that's going through a solid, what's going to happen to it? So then they kind of have to use their vocabulary and then apply that to different questions. And they do get to draw it. And again, this also has a worksheet where they're doing a lot of interacting and a lot of drawing. So they get a bowl of variety of waves. Students were to work together to arrange the waves by similar characteristics, such as wavelength, amplitude, and frequency. And students then use those 3D printed waves to draw 4 different types of waves. They have to draw me a short and a long wavelength, a high and a low frequency. And the drawings are completed. Sometimes they're on paper. It really depends on the year and the day, and also the class period. Some people do better with paper, and then I'll use digital platforms. So they draw, and then I can shoot it up to the smartboard to show different examples. But again, it's just a different way of getting them interacting with materials that I can use over and over again. And then do we have any questions on any, and these were just 3 or 4 examples that I utilize, but I do things with rotation and revolution where I have them have different circular objects, and they themselves have to create solar systems and things like that. So, I mean, it could be life science, it can be or space science, it could be physical science, or it could just be we need something physical, hands-on. Let's just get our brains thinking, like I do with the seeds kit at the beginning of the year. So it really doesn't necessarily need to be incorporated within a lesson. It could even be a bell work or something really quick just to introduce a new topic or to review something that we went over the previous day. Are there any questions that we may have?
If you want to stop sharing your screen, I will show those seeds while we're waiting on questions to come in.
Yes. Good. I think I did. Yes.
Yes. All right. Screen number 1, y'all can judge the absurd quantity of tabs I have open. But so this is our seed dispersal kit. So it has some air, some water, some attached to animals by being sticky, the kind we all hate when we're out hiking. And then we have another one which is all specifically on air dispersal varieties. So you can mix and match or use some of each. And for anyone who didn't see in the chat, I dropped a link to an extended trial. So if you're not already in MyStemKits, you can go to the homepage, which is just MyStemKits. Why is it not showing up as a regular website? .com, register an activation code, and fill in the code from the chat, which is Ready Set STEM 2023. It is case sensitive, so match that. But that's where you can find a lot of good resources that Meredith uses in her lessons. A lot of the 3D models are there. And sharing more Meredith awesomeness, she has written a number of great blogs for us. So I just dropped a link in the chat to searching the word Meredith in our blog category, so you can see more detailed versions of the waves and the moss and the plate tectonics and all of that.
And I also do one with plant and animal cells, where they actually have to build the cells using the 3D printed kits. And I make them huge. I make them like life size. So it's really a puzzle that they have to put together, and then they have to identify the different organelles. So they're really seeing something rather than just seeing it in a microscope, which is cool. It's fun because kids will get to use the microscope. But then I want to blow up essentially what they can see in a microscope and have them interact with it like one-on-one. So it's really hands-on. It's really cool. And the kids come back and be like, hey, I'm in AP biology and I totally remembered all my organelles. So I do get the high schoolers coming back and be like, thank you so much. So it's the 3D manipulatives. It helps them remember. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Tracy.
I don't see too many questions in the chat, though. Please keep them coming if you have any. One question I have for you is, how many of these lessons that you came up with were prompted by seeing the kits, and how many of them were adaptations of lessons you already did, and you just thought, that can tie in with what I'm already doing?
I would probably say it's about a 50-50. So there were a lot of times where I had a lesson and it was an okay lesson, but it just needed something. And then I would see a kit and it's like, well, I could utilize that for this. It's not what it's supposed to be. Like the seed dispersal, I don't use it for what it's truly designed to be, but I use it nonetheless. I use it in my own way. So I would say it's probably about a 50-50, where I'll see something and be like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm going to create a lesson around it, where compared to I already have a lesson and then I'm just using the 3D printed materials to enhance it.
Yeah, I think both are really great. And I always love anytime we see those blogs. And as you know, we've turned a few of them into lessons that are on MyStemKits. So we beefed up or just expanded with lots of pretty arts, the cell one you were talking about. And then we made the plate tectonics one and do a lesson there. And there are more I need to write that I just, now we have the blogs. But oh, and we wrote the moths one too, as I'm sitting here looking at the list. Yeah. So there's a lot of those that have actually been turned into full-blown MyStemKits lessons.
Yeah. So. Oh, we're getting kicked out.
Well, we have 2 minutes. So final moment of questions.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Do you guys use 3D printed materials? Do you create the accompanying worksheet, or are they stems? So I typically create my own worksheets. Nothing, my stems have worksheets, but I just need to make sure that the worksheets are aligned with my state standards. So I do create my own worksheets to go along with what my district requires of my standards.
It's a great question.
But the MyStemKits have incredible worksheets. Will I share them? If you go into the blog that is right above Tracy, right above you, a lot of my, they're shared in there. Storage. I have a very big storage for my, I have 2 cabinets in my classroom that are just filled with 3D printed materials. I just store them in Tupperware containers.
Yeah, with labels is my recommendation. So
Yes.
I have a storage of all the 200 some kits we have on our website, and they're alphabetized by kit. And because I only need 1 or 2 copies, I do Ziploc bags, but for class sets, Tupperwares is a great way to do it. But as you grow,
Tupperware is just because it's clean and it's easy. And then I just use, label maker preferably, but tape works in a nutshell. Mine is not as organized as it's not in alphabetical order. I try and keep it like life science, earth science.
Well, that's a practical system too.
So it's grouped together by topic.
All right. It looks like we got everybody back from both sessions. As you're joining back into our main room, let us know in the chat again, what was your biggest takeaway? What was a highlight from the session? Something you are looking forward to, something that is exciting. Type it in the chat. Set your settings to everyone so that everyone can see your biggest takeaways. And we'd love to see in the chat what stood out to you. I also know Hannah's going to put a link in the chat if you were in Meredith's session about MyStemKits. She'll send a link for MyStemKits as well as a free trial for those that would like. All right. Here's a quick update. I haven't gotten to everybody, so if you have posted on Twitter, X, or Instagram, and you don't see your post here yet, we're trying to get as many as we can. I love this one with the dog. Got the thumbs up. Anything like this, just taking a quick picture or screenshot of your session, or as we can see, Angela's just typing out some awesome takeaways that she's had. So love these posts. This interaction's fantastic. And don't forget, there are some prizes to be had here. So we do have a Mimeo STEM challenge as well. And our Mimeo STEM challenge is something that takes place after today's session. So the social media, you're commenting, you're posting about what your takeaways are. But if you also are wanting to get more involved with creating something and then showing us what you've created, there is another chance for either a Robo E3 10-pack of filament MyStemKits teacher plan or a Lyric portable sound system. And then we will also put a link to all of the rules with our Mimeo STEM challenge. It's more of an after today's event challenge, and it's about crafting engaging educational activities. So there's a lot of detail on this screen, but what we will do is we will put a link in the chat so that you can check out at a later time or when it's easier for you what that Mimeo STEM challenge entails.